Hello and welcome to Beyond the Veil background information. Today we're doing about a character and it happens to be Niloofar. Nothing. I no longer need help. However, it is the way of things that I have to repay your kindness and do whatever I can to aid you in becoming a man, Niloofar stated firmly, a proud expression upon her face as she straightened up from his hand. Then she noticed his face. James was smirking and trying to hide it behind his other hand as he gave a soft snigger. He could not help it. The way she'd said it was the kind of thing someone could take out of context far too easily, and he could not help himself but snort over it. He managed to make a soft grunt at the thought she might be a little too small to do what he had in mind. But though he'd meant it as a joke, Niloofar gave a sharp gasp and a look of fury was upon her face as she then stomped up and down in fury at him. That is, a virtuous man. I don't appreciate that rude look on your face, or indeed your giggling. Do all humans now have such a disgusting mindset? Quote from Fragrance of Paradise. In trying to think of a quote from Fragrance of Paradise that best introduces Niloofar, I couldn't help but choose the one that gave the main character the worst impression. Certainly if you say things in the wrong kind of context, you can get a surprise. Niloofar is a character with a very straightforward mindset, but in a modern world, as well as dealing with someone like the main character of Jim, she has to start understanding her own prejudices, and her growth and eventual affection for Jim as the story continues is what made it an enjoyable story to write. Aside from the Staffordshire Bull Terrier Ziggy. He was fine. So anyway, let's talk about Niloofar. Name Niloofar, sometimes referred to as Banu Niloofar, to indicate her high position amongst her kind. Position? Peri trained to aid humans. Story featured in Fragrance of Paradise. Role? Female protagonist. Gender? Female. Description: golden bronze skin, pitch black hair that goes down in soft waves about her shoulders with big purple eyes and glass wings that shine in the moonlight. Generally she is tiny, about the size of a little finger most of the time, but other times she is about 5'5". She has perky breasts and a round backside, although she is a little on the skinny side. She has a beautiful face, her eyes the biggest feature, and her nose and eyebrows neat like they were drawn on. Everything about her face is either angelic or beautiful, depending on how you view people. Realm: Beyond the Veil, which means in our world. Abilities: can help humans see demons and avoid their tricks, can battle Jin, changes size and who sees her, can bless others and works almost like a guardian angel to help people. Master: the Almighty. Personality: self-righteous and a little stuck up. She has a close set of morals and ethics in her head that she believes make up the best way for a human to have a good enough soul to enter heaven, and as such she can bully her way into helping people as well as manipulate them. She never intends anything bad by this, but can be insensitive. She is obedient to people she sees as above her, or deserving of respect, but she can come across as dismissive to those she thinks should listen to her alone. Above all things, though, she is compelled to help people out, make friends, and she is not afraid to fight. Relations: Zaria. The Watcher she thought was her father, Zaria was someone that always helped Niloofar out no matter her situation, and indeed was eager to teach her how to help humans. Andreophus. The demon mother she never knew, Niloofar has always been aware of the dangers this demon proved to humans, but did her best to avoid her under Zariel's instructions. Kokibo. Her actual father and another Watcher. Niloofar thought he was always a wise angel, but she could never see past his facade to misery beyond. James Essel Jr., the human who has released her from her cage and her new ward. His rough manner and the fact he runs an establishment for booze requires work to lead him onto the better path. She likes that he is ultimately honest and caring, especially in his relationship with his niece and his dog Ziggy. Ziggy, Jim's pet Staffordshire Bull Terrier. Niloofar trusts animals above people and is able to communicate with him well, and is glad that Ziggy has a noble streak that he tries to impress upon his owner, and is the perfect guardian for a period being hunted by sparrow demons. She appreciates him probably more than she appreciates Jim. History. Born to stand with her feet on earth, her head raised to the heavens, and her delicate wings fluttering, Niloofar heard her mother call out to her as she fell into hell, but she ignored her, desperate to understand her purpose. As she stepped out around the opening, she was met by her sister Peri and brother Dijin. The more coming together and learning that the Dijin were beings tainted by the fire of hell with a malevolent streak towards all humans, whereas the Peri were made of air. Their wings contained some kind of link to the clouds of heaven, making them inherently good. As the two groups paced the world together, they learnt that one lived off contentment, where the other lived off chaos. They were as different as any brother and sister, but they understood that they formed balance together, and for a long time they worked together to help keep the world beyond heaven and Eden a paradise. But inevitably the sons of Adam and the daughters of Eve began to cover the world more, and they interacted. Niloofar and the Perrys did not like humans much at first. They would get insects to buzz them or spook them away from their flowers, but the Djinn were crueler and liked to talk to the humans and trick them into doing bad things. As the beings began to cause more mischief, demons began to be drawn to them, and the Peri was scared of the demons that tried to encourage them to keep preventing humans from touching the beauty of the earth, which would have made humans starve. But under the instruction of the elder Peris, like Samara, the Peri refused to hurt the humans, and instead began to teach them to be wary of demons and the Djinn. It was then that they were met by the Watchers, angels that included their fathers, and found themselves leaving the Djinn joyous to be a part of something and to have a family. Amongst the Watchers, Niloofar was always around Zaria, sensing that maybe he had a link to her, as he always seemed to look at her mournfully. She would beg him to teach her as he taught the humans, and always she did her best to impress, eager to stay with him and learn about what it meant to have a purpose in the universe. But as time went by and the Peri realised that the Watchers were teaching forbidden knowledge and cavorting with human females, with some of them, like the infamous Azazel, even trying to seduce the Peri, they realised something was wrong and began trying to stop the Watchers and stop the humans. When the Nephilim began to be born, Niloofar was shocked, though thankful Sariel had nothing to do with it, and she would try and stop the Djinn from encouraging the Nephilim to be like them and cause trouble for the smaller humans that seemed to reject them, and to join up more with the demons. In the end, the Peri came together and wept, sobbing as their wings fluttered for the plight of the humans and summoning the angels. To the sorrow of the Peri, they watched their Watcher fathers be punished and their Nephilim siblings be drowned as they were gathered by Ariel and made to sit in front of the gates of heaven to watch the destruction and weep. It was then that Ariel conveyed a message to them. Mankind is impatient and jealous in nature. The words of the fallen can have greater sway, and angels can only advise, but if the Peri were to protect and guide a soul to heaven, they may enter heaven too. This was the decision of the Almighty, and Niloofar was determined she would aid the humans. But when humans came back to the earth, the Djinn were more aggressive, and the Peri had to try and figure out ways to defeat them, sometimes tricking them with the help of their humans to become trapped in jars, rings, lamps, pots, anything they could charm that had been made by a mortal for the sake of another to use. It worked well, but the Djinn fought back. Niloofar was one of the main Peri to battle the Djinn, and always she was aided by the animals of the world to find them and confront them in challenges, knowing the pride of a Djinn would lead it to trouble. But in the end, her own foolish pride brought her into the same kind of trouble. Not long after Samara was able to enter heaven, Niloofar's human looked close to be doing the same, when the girl was tricked by a demon in the guise of a sparrow to take the incense made by the Djinn and burn it at night to attract the perfect husband. The girl, desperate to make a good husband to help her family, and not heeding Niloofar's advice on patience, lit the incense, and the smell was strange, suffocating, and forced Niloofar to pass out. She was then placed into a little box dressed inside like a doll's house, with an iron cage built into the frame of the box. The demon to have caught her then insisted that she be given over to it, but when the human attached a quartz crystal to the box, as she had been taught by Niloofar, the sparrow's demon form was revealed, and only the Djinn could touch the box, though none could open it because of the crystal. The human begged for help, and the Peri sisters of Niloofar stole the box. They fixed the quartz into it, but they could not open the box because of the iron, and so they sought a human who would open the box for them, but the human they chose was not as trustworthy. It was paid by a Djinn to keep burning an incense around the box, to keep Niloofar asleep until the demons could figure out a way to get the crystal out of the box, not trusting a human to hand over the Peri once it opened it. Niloofar remained in the sleep for centuries as the box passed hands to each corruptible human the Djinn could find, until a curious case of dealing with soldiers in the Middle East saw the box into the hands of James Essel, a terrible womanizer who was given the chance to always be adored by the women he chose, no matter what he did, as long as he kept the incense lit. He did so, keeping the box in great care until some stroke of luck had him decide to pass it on to his only official son in his will, along with all the bad luck women that the Djinn had bounced off it. Where this should have made James Essel Jr. bitter and easier to trick, luck had it the Djinn was actually a very righteous person, and so, by accident, he forgot to light the incense, and with the help of his dog Ziggy, opened the box for Niloofar, and then found himself with a tiny beautiful woman who seemed to think he needed to be a better human. Final comments. I had several different ideas for the story originally, and the file name was curiously nicknamed Periade, but it was the choice of another friend to call it Fragrance of Paradise. And well, there's sometimes I didn't like writing for Niloofar. She was actually quite funny in different ways, and so, in the end, I enjoyed writing about her. Thank you very much.